Hey there, welcome to another video on the Be a Hero Gaming channel. Today we are privileged to have a real hero with us, Mr. Jeff French, who has taken a lot of heat lately and still has a good attitude and is super pumped up. And I'm glad to see that. We're just going to run through a few questions here to see if we can get a little more information about the game and get people up to speed. And I know I've had a lot of questions. Maybe people out there have had a lot of questions too. And so we'll just get going. First of all, if you could just give us a quick summary on your ideas for this game and how it came to be and how that whole process worked.
Sure, Ben. So first of all, thanks so much for having me. And I really do appreciate the content that you put out, the positivity. You see me in your comments that your content on a bad day, a little bit of Ben lifts you up, and some of the stuff that you do to tie in the real world. So it's great, man. And we need a little bit more of that in the world. So I am a lifelong collector. It's in my DNA. I'll spare you all the backstory, but I'm kind of like first guy in my family to go to college. My mom, single mother, coming out of Jim Crow in the South, very poor, and we didn't have a whole lot. And I'm not saying that as a sob story. I'm just saying that that's just the way life was. But I got into collecting very early on, man. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with baseball cards. I remember when the GIs came back to Charlotte Air Force Base, and I knew about the Topps Desert Storm set, going and trying to get my hands on those, and just doing all the things I did in collecting. And a lot of people think that collecting is something that you can only do when you have a lot of money, but that's not true. You don't have to have a lot of money to collect, and finding some of those hidden gems is oftentimes some of the most rewarding. And I've had those rewards in my life, and it's been awesome. I actually missed age wise the TCG mania. I graduated in 1993, right as Magic was releasing, and I'm working my way through
Right.
college. Didn't have time to really go and put into it. I started hearing about it. I grew up a bit of a proud nerd, so I had some friends that were jumping in playing it. But it really took a number of years before it really started to resonate with me what was happening there. And I really didn't start collecting it until, I mean, Pokemon was already out. It was up into the 2000s. And I started collecting, really understanding that I really felt there was something there, that the IP and the way these games were built different than sports cards. I like to always say Pikachu doesn't commit a crime. Pikachu doesn't pull his hamstring. He's always in the lineup every
Right,
single
right.
day. And so I was like that aspect of it. So I started putting those things into, the collecting, and putting them in the mix of what I was doing. Then my kids came along. My son was super into Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, and that just kind of fueled me even more. I always kind of had this affection for Magic the Gathering, because Magic the Gathering was it defined that, what Richard Garfield did defined the whole genre, right? So
Right.
the lore of the Black Lotus and the Power Nine, and just the Chaos Orb, and some of the stories around seeing it ripped up at a tournament, whether that really happened or not, and guy throws it in the air and it lands and wipes out his opponent, and this big massive removal. Things like that were just always interesting to me, and I kind of collected around them. So that's always been in my DNA. So the desire to build these in this space was something that I always wanted to do. And so in being in ad tech, and I've got a patent on some lookalike ad targeting things and on the agency side, but I never lost my love for collecting. And doing that side, marketing work and all, that's not necessarily very rewarding. It's a pretty thankless profession, top to bottom. But it was something that we were good at. I had partners that were good at it, but I always wanted to do something in the collecting space. And so I definitely became very fascinated with the blockchain and what was happening with the blockchain when that came along. And I felt that the blockchain was going to change a lot of things, a lot for industries. It was going to allow for just new, like, for example, being able to tokenize a physical Magic card, put it in a vault, tokenize it. Somebody could own it. You could own it. You could sell it to someone in Australia. They could sell it to someone in Japan. When they sell it back to someone in California, the person in California wants the physical card, they can get it shipped to them, and that NFT, dirty word, becomes the proof of ownership. And so
Right.
we started doing that in our company Block Packs. We started creating gamified experiences around that, and we just kind of kept rolling our sleeves up. And we had Pokemon cards and Magic cards, we had sports cards, and we were always in that collecting space. So that's the market that began to kind of form around us, people that had those interests. And then we said, look, the way we can try to grow this business is to really try to look out and build our own franchises. And so as we sat down and said, look, the way that we can build a big scalable company here is to build our own franchises. And we knew we wanted to build something in the sports space. I knew I wanted to build something in the TCG space. I was not again, I'm not a guy that could build Wonders of the First. And I've said that many, many times too. The actual game itself, the seven lanes that you play in, the seven realms,
Right.
that is actually a framework that I came up with for a game when I was 12 years old.
Oh,
Played
cool.
it with baseball cards. It was very basic. It certainly could have been classified as a CCG. You could play with a different lineup than I had. So
Hmm.
this predated, Magic and all that stuff. Not to say that, I mean, obviously I didn't get there first. Garfield got there first, but that's where the game really did truly, that concept originated from. And then when I partnered up with Brian Tinsman, I said, look, I have this game and it was always fun. My friends always loved it. Have you seen a CCG like this? And he said, well, there's lane duelers and that sort of thing. He said, but no, you got some unique things going on here. And I said, well, I want us to build a game, but can we, if this framework is one that you feel good about, can we build on it? And so Brian went back and he worked on it, and he came back to me and said, hey, I got a proof of concept here. What do you think about this? And I was like, that looks amazing. That's really good. And Brian is you may have heard this. He's a 999. So he's a Mensa among Mensas, like the highest level of brain. So
Right.
you're taking me, I'm a smooth brain, man. I try to look at things with a 65 IQ. Like if 65 IQ can't explain it, I probably don't need to even worry about it. Like it's just, I'm not this uber nerd like Brian is. And he hits on a different level, and he saw card balancing on a different level. He saw the ability for the realms to balance across each other on a different level. And that was all really, really just something that was super cool. To go back just a little bit, but while we're engaging on that, the first thing we did is we said, look, we want to build a world of immersive characters, like this big, broad world. And so with Kish, who was already on my team at the time, Chris Kish, our creative director, we sat down and we said, look, what can we do? How can we do this? Can we use some of this generative stuff where something can pull attributes of one thing and build a bunch of different characters and that sort of thing? And we said, and we can be more ambitious than that. With something like with this generative AI art that's coming along, we can make these characters more unique and we can build a more cohesive world. And Kish is the one that sold me on that. I said, man, that sounds kind of crazy. And then when Brian's heard what we were doing, Brian's like, you're doing what? 5,000 characters? Have you lost your mind? Like, how are you going to manage it? So while Brian is then, working on the gaming side, we're over here with Kish and he's working on trying to bring this world together. And he did it. And Brian's like, I've heard Brian say, damn, if he didn't do it, like he did, that credit goes to Kish. I mean, it's an amazing immersive world. And he did that with the team. It would not have been possible without AI. And it allowed us to build alongside the community in a very unique way. And then what we did is we put all those characters on the blockchain so that people could own them as a digital relic, right? Same way that I said earlier, you own that NFT for a card.
Right.
You can own the character. There's nothing to redeem in a physical sense. It truly is just a digital collectible, but it does come with certain rights to display it and that sort of thing. And then also, we grant rights that people can build on it if they so choose. They can do things with that themselves. And as all of that is coming together, what that did, Ben, is it created this really decentralized group of people that now have an affinity for these characters in this world that you just can't get a stronger sense of ownership than that, right? Than what that did for them. They have no ownership in the company. They have no rights to any profits or anything like that. Each of these is a non-fungible, your own character. Doesn't matter if it goes on to be the biggest character in the franchise or the smallest. It's your individual character, and they all stand alone on their own. And we think that was a really interesting way to kind of birth a world into existence, and which is the name of the set, existence set, right? And then so from there, you combine really the pieces of the puzzle. Kish on the creative side, Tinsman on the game side. That's the peanut butter and jelly that came together. And I was just the guy with the chalkboard in the locker room. Those were the guys that were out making the plays on the field, and they really brought it home. And what we have today is a beautiful game that Tinsman has designed, and we have a beautiful world that Kish has designed. And those two things together, that peanut butter and jelly, it makes quite the sandwich.
That is really cool to hear, because I never realized that you were the one that came up with the idea with the lanes or the different realms in the first place.
My one contribution, man.
It
Very
is
basic
great. That's
contribution.
enough,
Very
'cause
basic
that's
contribution.
pretty unique. So that's pretty cool. And just to hear, so Kish was kind of the one, because I think people have the misunderstanding that this was an NFT project first. and then that didn't work. And so, well, let's make a card game out of it instead.
No, yeah, that's totally. You can go back. That history is there. There, the people that are here, they know that that's not the case. I mean, when we went to build that world, we envisioned it as a franchise that
Mhm.
could support a CCG, but we
Okay.
wanted the franchise to be bigger potentially than a CCG, and we wanted the community to own that franchise. There
Okay.
was never ever a NFT game. That is just completely false. 100%. We were never doing an NFT game. These were never again those characters. They were just the establishment of the characters. This was always a tactile cardboard experience. No QR codes, nothing digital. And again,
Right.
you don't. And this is a big point. Anyone that's engaging with the game, you walk into your local hobby shop or local game store and you pick up a box of the existence set. You never have to worry about the fact that those characters are somewhere codified on a blockchain. That doesn't mean anything in your world. You only care about the cards in your hand.
Right.
And it's a very small subset of people that I think will care about that. But if you grow big enough and you have a small subset of 10,000 people, that's a lot smaller group than a small subset of 1 million people. And
Right.
certainly if you get to 1 million people, those character proofs could be quite exciting for the owners. 100%, they could be very exciting.
Sure.
But that's simple supply and demand, the same way a Black Lotus is. It's all based on, do people want them? Do they vibe with them? And there are people right now that have no plans at all to really do anything other than display them in a frame. Like they sell these digital frames that you can. I mean, I have one hanging up in my foyer,
And you can stick them
and
on
you
your wall.
can, yeah, and you can cast your digital art into that, and it's pretty cool. You can change it out every day. It's a in if you got a favorite character, the one I use on my Kickstarter profile is one that I like. It's not even in the existence set. It's just a character to be used in the future, and I actually had it on my frame this past weekend. It's actually rotated to something different, but like things like that are just the way that a lot of people use it. And if you talk to some of those people that have those, they're very excited about that piece of it. And that's something that, we look forward to bringing that to more people in the future.
Well, that's cool. And I hope that clears that up for a lot of people, that this was the intent from the beginning, that you had an idea for a game, you brought in a couple of people and said, hey, look, why don't you handle the world, why don't you handle the mechanics, and let's come together and see if we can come up with something awesome, which I think
Yep.
you definitely did, definitely successful at. And I had mentioned in another video that I first found it from a Facebook ad. And again, I don't mean to judge a book by its cover, but there's a lot of games that if I look at the game and I don't like the way it looks, this is probably bad on me, but I won't go any further than that. And I
Sure.
saw the Wonders cards, thought, man, those look really cool. And so I clicked on it, watched a couple of videos, and as soon as I saw the video where I don't remember which one it was, where you had mentioned we're trying to make a game that rewards both players and collectors, I thought that's me. That
Yep.
that's exactly what I want. I want something that I can play and collect. And just the more I looked into it, I thought, wow, this looks like they've provided plenty of opportunities to collect with this game. But then I thought, but is the game fun? So I started scrolling down the Kickstarter, and again, I hadn't really covered a lot of TCGs or CCGs. And I guess this is common for there to be print and play decks. I didn't realize that, but printed the decks out and started playing and was just hooked, and just couldn't get enough of it, and kept playing and playing, looking for strategies or deck combinations. And so that's kind of where I found it was that attraction to the collection and the playability of the game, I think is what really interested me. And the thing I wonder about was, you're going against the grain with a lot of things with this game. Did you anticipate backlash? Did you anticipate the kind of heat that you've gotten? Because there's been plenty of it.
Yeah, so we did anticipate some of it, and then some not to the degree that we did. So we sampled before we came into this. We sampled over 40,000 CCG enthusiasts, and we knew that the breakdown of like you're basically part of a 70% cohort of people that like to collect and play. That cohort goes down a little bit when you go into Magic. They have a little bit higher just players, but you also have the pure collectors like Pokemon, opposite of that. They have people that only collect. But as a
Right.
whole, the whole market, it's about 70% are players and collectors. And then the other 30% fall into either player or collector. And so we knew about that. We knew that there was about a 30% kind of anti-AI sentiment. Basically, people that say, I don't want AI. I think it steals human jobs. I don't like it. I don't want it. So we knew that there was that headwind. Then there was a large subset of people who have not made up their mind yet. And then there was about the cohort of people that are like super excited about AI is around 20% right now. So 20 super excited, 30 very adversarial, undecided in the middle, right?
That I have.
So we knew that those were kind of things that we were looking at. We knew that the AI would be a headwind. Going back to those character proofs that we have, one of the things that we did is we put 50 of them randomly within our packs. And so originally when we went live on Kickstarter, so you could hit a card that would allow you, Ben, to come late. You weren't here early. Luck of the RNG gods, you now have a character. And that could be your character. And we were really excited to offer that opportunity to new people. And you think about that, the long shot those hits would have been, if we do 1 million packs and there's 50 of those, very long shot, right? So if you hit one of those, it's just the RNG gods have definitely shined.
Right.
And then Kickstarter came to us and said, no NFTs. And that was a kick. Like, we didn't see that coming because their terms didn't say no NFTs. It's 2024. I said this to Kickstarter. They know that this is my position. If you don't want to have NFTs in 2024 as part of a product in any way, shape, or form, it's 2 words, actually a word and an acronym, no NFTs, and it's done. And we would have never put them in there, or we would have looked into a different platform. So that really was not great. I mean, that really sucked. And what that did, and folks will say, oh, he's just whining. He's whining. He's complaining. Well, it's like, I don't know how you explain things and not, people are going to accuse me of whining. I'm not, but the thing is that it really put a lot of, it energized the people that are anti-AI and the people that just don't like us. Right. And so they really started their grave dancing, and they've organized on Facebook groups. People have sent us screenshots of people that are organizing to come and brigade Kickstarter to try to get us removed.
Oh no.
Oh, absolutely. There are, there are different groups. And again, I'm not claiming that our community has just laid down and been passive in some of this. Like, our community feels offended at some of this stuff too. Have they chirped back? Yes. I'm an emotional guy. I try to meet the energies that someone gives. Like, if you're kind, I try to exceed your kindness. But I'll admit, there are times where if you come out swinging, I may try to exceed you on the other side too. I'm an emotional guy, and some people that rode some people the wrong way, and that's fair. But that same emotion has served me well. It served me well in a lot of walks of my life. It's been a strength, and at times it's a weakness. And I'm just being honest. It's sometimes the emotional, I do come with a lot of passion in everything that I do, and I like to win. The last thing in the world that I want is for Wonders of the First to not succeed. And this is going to be a multi-year grind. Like I think a lot of folks say, okay, well, wow, you had that big Kickstarter, you were $1.5 million. Now you're a lot less than that. Where will you finish? I don't know where we're going to finish, but that doesn't materially alter where we're headed with the business. I mean, we're trying to scale this into a major CCG. You do that with significant investment, you lose money for years. People think, oh, you're just selling cardboard, your prices are outrageous. Okay, well, what they don't see is they don't see supporting LGSs. They don't see that every shop that buys our product, that we're going to run those same ads that brought you to the Kickstarter, that we're going to run those ads in Paducah, Kentucky, to drive people to the LGS that's having a game on Thursday night. That we're going to bring that same, and then as one LGS partner has success by putting our product on the shelf, and we take that to the next LGS partner. Our head of sales is a former LGS owner. Like, that felt to me like the guy to put in the seat. It didn't feel to me like I should go get a guy that had hired someone who had done sales for Wizards or some other big company. I wanted someone who knew the pains of the people that have those businesses, right? And so that's who we put in that seat, a former LGS owner. And that's one thing that, a lot of people, they look and they say, hey, this team doesn't have a lot of experience in tabletop. You got Brian. Brian's and he's our star, man. He's our head coach on the tabletop side. Brian's resume, incredible. Brain is incredible. But that's a fair question to ask with him. And then you got Relio and head of sales. Those are our 2 main guys that have the best industry experience. We are using consultants to handle card quality and that sort of thing at the factory. I've said we're doing it in the US. I'm actually not even allowed to say these factories are incredibly protective of things. Some of them, Cartamundi is a little bit, they don't, but there's a lot of protectionism around what's coming off. Like we have to sign all kinds of NDAs to set foot in the factory because they have other things that are being produced that we're not allowed. So we can't take photos.
Right.
That's a bit of a, you have to be very careful what you say about those guys. I asked a question about the foiling process, and man, I got a lot of blowback on it because I was, there's there's just, you got to be careful on that sort of stuff. But we're building here in the US so we can be closer to the production process. We've got consultants that are helping us with that, people that have produced millions and millions and millions of cards, because I haven't done that. I haven't foiled cards. I know the general idea of how it works, but I know what I want my cards to look like when they come off the line, but I've never done that. So we have to lean on consultants there. As far as all of our back end and that sort of thing, if you can manage the back end for one type of product, you can manage it for a tabletop type product. Where we need to fill a big spot right now is our org play seat. So if anybody's listening to this and you have org play experience, and that is someone I would like to hire out of the industry,
Yeah.
that's a seat that we still need to fill. But we're going to invest in all those things. We're going to support those channels. We're going to try to help put wind in the sails of the LGSs that carry us. And when they start having Wonders of the First Night, they turn out 25 people when they normally turn out 20. They turn out 50 people when they normally turn out 20. And now next thing you know, Wonders of the First is the biggest one because we're supporting it so hard in that market and we're helping to send people there to play. That's how we'll start to get that love. And then once you get a few of those case studies, then you start getting other LGSs that adopt. I'm looking very hard at the distribution model right now. So where I do think the distribution model in this space is very antiquated. I won't go as far as to say that it's broken, but it's very antiquated. And it's, a point that I often make is we go back to our core team and I say, yes, we have people that are business people. We know where we're weak. We know how to scale different things. We try to fill where we have weakness. We try to put the right people in the seats to make up for those weaknesses. But here's something that I fundamentally believe in. Disruption rarely, if ever, comes from within an industry. It's almost always someone from the outside that disrupts. And it's easy to throw around the big ones. The iPhone, Steve Jobs was a computer guy. A phone, today we think of the phone as a computer. That wasn't the way it was when the iPhone came out. He was disruptive to that space. I mean, we had Blackberries at the time, right? Tesla, like Elon Musk, car guy, he's sending rockets to space. Like he did PayPal, for goodness sake, right? Those are obviously big time disruption, but that goes down the line. Because what happens is when people that are in industries, and you see this, like a good company to look at is Facebook, Meta. Some of their best innovations, and Google, their best innovations are things that they bought. Google didn't create YouTube, they bought YouTube. Facebook didn't create Instagram, they bought Instagram. YouTube tried to create circles. Want to use that? How's Threads going for Facebook? Like, that's the difference of innovation from within and disruptive innovation coming from the outside. There is no way that anyone could say we're not outsiders in the tabletop industry.
Right,
like we are the outsiders, right?
I was just going to say, and it has to be, because I think the people from the inside are so used to doing things the way people have always done them. And so it's got to be someone, hey, I got an idea, maybe something you guys haven't heard of before. And I want to say it's really cool to see your energy and tenacity with this project, because I have to say, when I first got that email saying it was going to be taken off Kickstarter, I kind of just threw my hands up and thought, well, it's done. I guess that's it. And then I jumped in on that a town hall you did, and I was like, wait a second, hang on a second. Jeff's he's still 100% into this. He's not giving this up. And it just really perked me up and excited me all over again to see you say, you know what? There's going to be setbacks along the way, and that's not going to stop us. We're still going. We're still committed to this. And that was just really cool to see, and really sealed the deal for me when it came back online again to put that pledge up again.
We really appreciate it, and everybody that did, and we really appreciate those pledges, and that's great. And it's a great signal that was sent early. Do I wish that it had continued to roll? Sure, I do. But the reality of it is, for those that care to listen, we had the Projects We Love badge. We don't have that badge anymore. Kickstarter decided they didn't love us anymore. And when they did that, that basically all but nerfs the internal algorithm love that you get. And we have admittedly said that we're not spending to any material level on the campaign. We've got some stuff that we're doing specific targeting around certain pieces of misinformation, but we're not spending a material amount on the campaign. And that's the net effect of what you're seeing. These campaigns today that do millions of dollars, I'm not saying it never happens, but very rarely do those happen without significant ad support. And so
Sure.
all that budget is still there, all that powder is still dry, and we're going to use that powder for some exciting promotions. You may tell you something that we're planning to do after the Kickstarter wraps up. This is something that I think is
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah. Let's hear it.
so one of the things that we have right now is not everybody will do what you and your son do and print the print and plays or go to Staples and pay the $25 to bring them home with a cutter and a corner cutter and sleep. That takes time. Like how many hours did you have in that? Like by the time you did it all, you were what, 25 or $30 a print cost and probably 3 to 4 hours, probably, I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Or so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 3 to 4 hours of your time and the money to print them and do all that. So one of the things we're going to do is we've been talking to the factory about getting us a, stamped, not for official gameplay. You can't, they're not gradable, but taking those print and play decks, and we want to get them in hands quickly. So we're going to have a package where people will be able to come to our website. They'll be able to get a cool play mat. It's going to be an official play tester team play mat, and they'll be able to get those 3 decks or maybe some other decks, and we'll ship them out to them. You order them on a Tuesday, they're at your house on a Thursday. And that's what we're going to focus on for the next, call it 60 to 90 days. We're not going to just roll out a Kickstarter and try to sell boxes or different SKUs.
Right.
We're going to actually, I'll break this piece of news right here on your show. We're going to close the print run for the first edition in Kickstarter. And we're doing that because we want to reward the people that are here with us at this earliest juncture. And the first edition stamp means nothing for gameplay. The serialized cards that are in the boxes as hits, they mean nothing for gameplay.
Right.
They're fun, they're collectible, but the gameplay just needs the existent set boxes that are, foils and they're still a collect and play box, but they're not going to have the stone foil chases in it. They're not going to have the serialized cards, and they won't have any stamped first edition cards. And so that's something that we're going to do to reward this earliest community that's here. So we're going to
only the Kickstarter boxes will have serialized or stone foils.
Yeah, we're going to,
The
yes.
OCMs and the stone foils,
Right.
only Kickstarter. And then once they go out.
Yep. The serialized boxes we did with our reward program, kind of like Sorcery's Dust program, those are still out there. And we won't go all the way down that road. If somebody wants to talk about that, we can hop in Discord, we can explain it to you. But there's a very small supply of those. But the collect and play print run will close. That will end first edition, and everything else that gets printed will not have the first edition stamp. There will be the only way you can now get boxes that can hit stone foils and OCMs is in the Kickstarter. That's it. And when the Kickstarter ends next Thursday, we'll need to have a little bit of an overrun, call it 5%, and then make sure it doesn't get damaged. And we'll use any excess for holdbacks for prizes or something. We won't sell them. And we'll turn that first edition supply over to the community in that format. So we're excited about that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to focus on onboarding players, and we're going to try to get to 10,000 players by the time we get to release day. And we're going to do that with a campaign that is driven around trying to get those same print and play decks that you and your son have, that you're building new decks out of and mixing and matching. We're going to try to put those in as many hands as we can. So rush order out of the factory on very, very inexpensive card stock, stamp, do not grade, not official, can't play with them later. The back of the card won't be the pretty back. It'll be white. And, but you sleeve them and they'll play fine. They'll be better than probably what you're playing with off of Staples, but they're not going to be, the bleed on them won't be great. They're not intended to be collectible. They're intended to teach people how to play the game sooner and get more people excited about the game, because that's where the game wins, Ben. You've seen that. The game wins. When we did this, I was hopeful that the game could have a 10% passion rate, 20% like rate, and then the rest of the people, not for me. We could build a great game around those metrics, a great game. Today, it is so off the chart when we get the feedback that it's like there's no point in us doing surveys right now. It's wild. We're talking like 90%. I love the game. I'm floored by that. And if anyone thinks that's disingenuous, all I can tell you is come in Discord and talk to the people that are really playing it, the hundreds that have either played it on TTS or played it in real life, and see what they say. See what people like you and your son are saying. Just come meet them. They're in there, or do it yourself. And we'll help you get them here in a few weeks. We'll make it easier for you. You won't have to go to Staples, and we'll release that burden. And that's going to be something so you play mat, the print and play decks, $30 or something, $35, and boom, shows up at your house and you're ready to play. And so just really do something to help get as many players as we can. And then when we get ready to go to launch, now we've got a bigger base that's built. We make up for some of this lost headway that we had in Kickstarter. We let the game shine through where it's the game is the best. We let that shine through. And then this prime collectability aspect that is very important to me and something that I love and something you say you love, we isolate that to at least that it's not that a foil out of the regular print box is not still collectible. It very much is.
Right.
But if you want the first edition stamp and you want the serialized, the big time hits that are very rare, yeah, that's where you need to get them. So
Hey, that's really exciting news. And I think that's cool. I've said before, the thing that's so cool about either doing the print and play, or it sounds like these decks are going to be available later, is that you not only get to know the game, but you get to know the characters. And so you
absolutely.
find the characters that you like, the cards that you like. It's one thing to open up a game you've never played before and get some random cards out. Like, what does this do? But if you're pulling the cards out that you've grown to love, that just adds that much more excitement to busting the packs open when I was hoping I'd get one of these, or
Yeah.
but there's also going to be a few that you haven't seen before. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see that. Now, do you have any plans already for like a second set? Is it too early for that, or is that kind of in the workings, or?
No, Brian has things that are penciled out. He has a lot of card abilities that are he's got the card abilities modeled in a lot of different directions. Again, his brain just hits on a different level, man. And so there are a lot of abilities and interactions that Brian already has, and we have a general idea of where we want to take the set from a lore standpoint. We're targeting Q3 of next year for that next set. And so it's about right now, once a year and then twice a year is the cadence that we feel like is probably the best. Look, if once we really, really ton it and there's just this fever pitch around the game 5-10 years from now, does it make sense to maybe go to 4? Maybe, but we don't want to overdo it. We want it to be the right balance. And then again, we could go in a million different directions. Maybe I can come back another time, and Brian, we better talk about this. But like the other thing is that DBS will add freshness to the set, on a pretty constant basis for those that are, and I could see you and your son just from what I've seen of your content. Like it's like, all right, I'm gonna beat your butt tonight. You got a 500. I'm gonna beat you with a 200, right? And so getting that dialing and trying to find the things that break the game that are in that maybe we score something too low, and then people have fun with, like Brian says, people have fun with that for a few months, and then we dial it up and they got to make some tweaks, or they got to
Right.
pay the price to have that in the deck. Like all that I think is really excitement. And one thing that I like about it, just from a business mind standpoint, is I really like the fact that it's going to, I think, allow us to have format consistency.
Right.
So you don't have to come in and worry that one person wants to play standard, one person wants to play vintage, one person wants to play commander. It's really, we're all playing the same game, and it's just a matter of, what does the matchmaking look like, and
Right.
how do we match make the right way? And so, and yeah, I'm going to knowingly play you with a stronger deck. And Brian makes the point, some people say, yeah, I got an 8 and my commander deck's a 6. So like, all right, well, I'm
But
a
it's
little
so
better than you.
arbitrary.
It's totally arbitrary, right? And so we think that will be something that we think the community is really going to vibe with. And time has to prove that out. That is one of those, disruption comes from the outside. It's almost
Sure.
it's almost like it's now that we see it and it's part of our world, it just feels so natural. But it's one of those things that you didn't really think about it until you had it. And now
Well,
that you
it's
got
such a
it,
cool idea too, just because, it's another mechanic that attracted me was being on equal playing field. And if you don't know what that means, DBS, it's a point system for each card. So more powerful cards are worth more points, and so they're going to take up more room in your deck. Um, and I think that'd be really cool to see what people come up with that point system.
for sure.
My son and I have been playing, and he keeps beating me, and I keep telling him it's these overpowered cards, but then we'll switch decks and he'll beat me again. So he eventually just said, "Dad, I think I'm just a better player than you are." And I think,
Oof,
it might
oof.
be, it might be.
Yeah,
You're
there
just a
you
better
go.
player than I am. But going back to something you mentioned earlier, um, so and this might be getting a little too deep in the business sense, but how do you know when you've printed too much? Because I know you've mentioned that before, that we don't want to overprint the game. How do you know when, okay, you know what, this is enough print, and we're going to drop this, and let's start working on the second set?
So player number targets and cards, specific cards per player that need to be in the world. And
Okay.
that's something that, stems primarily from Brian and his balancing experience. And then he feeds us the numbers. And then on the business side, we'll project the player count. And then what we'll try to do is we'll try to understand also make estimates on how much of a particular card. Like, let's Emma Shockbite. She's on the cover of the box, right? One of the
Right.
main frontline characters. So, what is the likely demand for Emma from collectors at various stages, especially when you get down to the paper Emma and the standard foil Emma, because those are the ones that mainly show in decks.
Right.
If you're sitting on a serialized Emma, if you're playing that thing, raw on the table, you're a madman. But even if you're sleeving it and shuffling it, I think you're a madman. At best, you're proxying that sucker off to the side, right?
Yeah.
But so the playable card supply really comes in the paper and the standard foils, and then you got some people will play with first edition foils, bling it up a little bit. The formless foils, those will end up in some decks. I don't know if you'll see many Emmas shuffled across the table in that. We'll see. But then the serialized and the other stuff. So we know that the collector demand is going to go to a certain degree to those higher end cards. And so those won't really impact gameplay a tremendous amount. So then it's a matter of then how many people that are the true players, how many of each card do they need to own on average to be able to build the competitive decks and have that competitive balance where we want it to be? Because a big
Okay.
part of the thesis here is that, everybody doesn't have to have every card. And when the new set comes along, if you join Wonders in set 2, 3, or 4, you're going to be able to come in, and DBS is going to allow you to match, make, and balance across both things. One, true raw power of the cards, but also collection size. The fact that somebody that can draw from the bigger collection, they're going to be able to enact certain combos, and those combos are going to score into DBS as well, and they're going to have an effect on that. So again, something that you just have to talk to Brian and unpack all of that. When I say that Brian is, I don't know that I've ever been around a more raw, brilliant person than him. He sees numbers and and the guys that are like super competitive players. Like we have one of the main play testers. He plays to like a top 2% CCG type in Europe. Like when he shows up, he's like legit, right? And and he will even tell you that, like, yeah, I may know how to play the game and stuff. And he's like, I may be able to beat Brian at the game, but there's no way in the world I can see card interaction. He just sees them on a different plane. And so everyone that's around Brian, really echoes that sentiment, just how brilliant he is. And yeah, we're leaning on him heavily. And but he's a core piece of this team for the long haul, and I look forward to Brian being my partner in this for years and years to come, until we eventually hand it off to some young bucks, maybe 10, 15 years from now. But
Cool. Cool.
um,
You mentioned a little bit earlier about local game stores.
mhm.
And I'd read some stuff about distribution and how that's kind of a headache because they do markups and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't
so
want to totally trash them, but yeah, I do think it's a model that has issues for sure.
okay. So I went to my local game store and I asked them if they'd seen the Kickstarter campaign and if the owner follows, and they said, oh yeah, he looks at Kickstarter stuff all the time. And he said, but they don't usually go for CCGs just because we've done that before and they've sat on the shelf and nobody knows what they are, nobody buys
Yep.
them. And so we end up discounting them and getting rid of them. What would you tell local game stores on why Wonders is going to be different?
So one of the things that I'll say is that we're not going to be afraid to use our. Some people actually attack us for this, but we're not going to be afraid to use our balance sheet strength to help strengthen those relationships. And what do I mean by that? In distribution, when times are great, distribution would always say, yeah, we'll take back product if you can't move it at a 15% restock fee. So
Mm-hmm.
you know that your downside is basically 15% of what you bought. Um, those are the type of things that they don't do on a new game, because there's obviously just a tremendous amount of risk in that. We can do that. We can offer those shops that. So if you're a lot more confident to carry something, I think if I tell you, look, if you stock us, what is your normal play size? Okay, your shop is about right for 10 cases. We think you could move 10 cases in 90 days. If you take the 10 cases, we'll do we'll give you a 15% restock, so that limits your downside, and we'll support you in X, Y, and Z ways. And we start bringing programs like that to the table, and those are the type of things that we can help a hobby shop or a local game store win. And so, and then some local game stores that want to take on more of that risk. Oh, sorry, thought I muted all that. And then some of those stores that they themselves are a little bit bigger, stronger financially, they don't have as much of that risk. And they're like, well, we market ourselves pretty good. We like your game. We think we can turn out our own crowd. There are opportunities there for us to then to take that budget for them and put it into other things. Like maybe we just help take some of the, maybe if they don't need marketing support, they don't need restocking support. We could put that more into the organized play support, specifically prizes, that sort of thing. So we're going to invest back is the short answer.
Okay.
So, if you look at where Magic is, they've obviously the game has gone a long way to be in the position that it's in. It has a massive player base. They fire up a Magic tournament on a Wednesday night and offer some promotional card or some packs or whatever as a prize. You're going to turn some folks out. It's Magic. It
Right.
sells itself, right? And they don't have to do that type of support. They just have to try to get you allocated with product. And we recognize that we have to come in differently. And so that's part of with distribution is distribution will, to a certain degree, I'm a little bit, I'm going to meet with, so I've got a vacation coming up. When I get back, I've got three distributors that I'm going to talk to, and I'm going to tell them my concerns, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to tell me why my concerns are not valid and why we should use them. And then we have had some LGSs that have just specifically told us we want to get from the distributor. We just want to have that single source. So I hear all that. And we're not just going to do it for the sake of doing it. We're going to try to make what we think is the right call. But it does resonate with them when it's like when you get your first allocation, they'll make you buy certain product that you don't need to get the product that you don't want to get the product that you do want. They'll
Right.
kind of hold those two things, hold this good one
So
hostage
they
to
can
make you
move it
take the
all.
crap, right? And then you got to figure out how to move that. And then when the product that's the good product, it then goes up in price and you could sell it for more, but you've already sold out. Now you go back to the distributor. It's like, well, here's all more crap you got to take, or they just take a price markup on it. Either way, it's all a lot of that meat stays at the distributor level. And 20 years ago, a distributor that could ship the country in 3 days was a massive value add to both manufacturer and hobby shop.
Right.
And then if they built their own fulfillment systems, again, massive value add. We have something today called 3PLs, third party logistic companies. There are any number of companies. This is the Amazon world, right? There's tons of companies that can ship the country in 3 days. There are fulfillment products. I mean, Shopify, one of the biggest companies that provides e-com, they have a wholesale fulfillment side. You plug in with your 3PL, hobby shop places an order, 3PL, boom, boom. It could all happen at the same speed that a distributor can. Now you've got a Shopify relatively low fee. You've got a 3PL whose fees are far less than a distributor. Now it's at the LGS. The LGS sells out. They want to reorder. They're reordering direct. We're not marking the price up. I don't have any crap to shove down your throat. You're just moving more wonders. That's where it could start to get more healthy. And so those are things I'm going to ask the distributors. This is what I think would be better for the industry. So tell me why I'm wrong, and I'll hear them. And maybe some hobby shops have said, well, maybe they'll carry your product as a side. Like they'll have it if the hobby shop just doesn't want to go through us direct, they can just get it there. We'll see. Maybe there's some opportunities for that, but
Well, and that's also really encouraging too, just to see your business background and how you kind of have an understanding of how all these operations work and function. Because I think a lot of, we've seen a lot of Kickstarter games, board games that have not delivered just because
sure.
people are game creators and they don't know how to work the management side of it. And so because of that, they spend all the money for Kickstarter and then they can't deliver the game. And it's just a tragedy. It's a terrible thing. And it's also really cool. I think a lot of people are discouraged when they see the Kickstarter the second time around, but it's really cool to hear you say, it is what it is. But once that's over, we're still just going to bulldoze. We're still going to keep going. I think that's so cool and encouraging for the game and the community and everybody's kind of latched onto it. I do just have one more question, unless you have anything else you want to say. I want to know if you guys are going to be at Gen Con.
I know that the team is working on an activation there. We're not ready to show up right now. I told this story before in my history that we have rushed other products in the past to shows that we weren't ready to activate around.
Okay.
We are planning to be there,
Be a
but
couple people wandering around.
I'm not gonna promise some massive thing. We're looking at it. We understand now next year for sure. Like, but at this phase, we're yes, we've got we're not just some little indie developer, but resources are fine. We've done a lot to get here,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Sure.
so you have to kind of pick your battles. And I can't wait till I can start attending more of those shows myself. I mean, I look forward to seeing it and being a part of that energy and that sort of thing for sure. So and before we wrap up, I will go back to one quick thing that you said,
Sure.
and I never, I talk to young entrepreneurs all the time. I try to make time to do mentoring. I've got a few guys that I mentor and that sort of thing. I look into investments to do. I love young entrepreneurs. I love them. However, the success rate of young entrepreneurs is terrible. It's absolutely abysmal. There is an amazing strong correlation to the number of times you've done it and the likelihood of success. Because if you've done it before and you've experienced adversity, you know how to do with it. You know
Right.
how to manage your runway. You know how to just do things that there are things that I don't know about tabletop, but I make up for it in what I know about business, managing the P&L and that sort of thing. And then the depth of the team is able to do the same. And so the correlation is very much there. The causation is that experience. And a lot of times I literally have written checks to younger entrepreneurs, and I do it not so much to be in the round that I'm in, but the round that I think that entrepreneur may hit on in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know the odds of success for them go up the more they fail, right? And for us, we've failed. I've failed many times over the years. We could have a whole show. I'll tell you about some failures. We could talk about failures all day, but we also have a lot of successes. And the thing is that failures aren't the end of the road. There's a difference when you fail and then you iterate to the next thing, right?
Right.
And because it's never a straight line. It's like this. And so these are the failures, right? But do we get to the promised land? And that's what we want to try to make sure that we do. And it's not going to be a straight line. It's not a straight line right now, but I'm confident we're going to get there. I'm confident we're going to proliferate this game. I can't wait to start ripping packs with my daughter, and we're going to do some things to have trust in how the product is collated and that sort of thing. To have where even I there's no way I could go say, "Ooh, I want to pick that box," because I know it's got the Emma Shockbite in it. We're going to do some things that follow along, and we'll show you how we're going to shake that stuff up too. That we're fairness, randomized distribution that people can trust, all those things that are super important, because I want to enjoy the product, and I can't enjoy the product if I know where the hits are. Right.
Sure.
And I want to enjoy the product. So I got to make everybody understand how we're doing that and why it would be fair for me to rip boxes, because I want to rip boxes, dadgummit. And so yeah, we're just looking forward to having all that fun with everybody.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I think, again, I think you have a really good product here. I think, and I'd mentioned this in another video too. I think there's a lot of failed collectible card games because they just try to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think you've done a lot of things here that are drastically different. That's upset a lot of people. But I think at the end of the day, it's a solid product, a solid game, and I'm looking forward to tearing packs open for years to come with this game.
Thanks
I
so
really
much, man.
appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And can't wait for this Kickstarter to end and move on to the next step.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. Keep up the positivity.
All right. Take it easy, Jeff.
Appreciate it, man.